beautiful people. Hi and good evening.
Hello.
Hey, Ange. Good to see you here. And so many familiar faces, so many new faces. It would be really, really awesome if you're all able to put your cameras on. It really helps to be able to see you, to connect, to have you in our visual field. If that's at all possible for you, you're invited to do that. So it's really such a delight for me to welcome you all to this Gather Round and Info session introducing our Fundamentals of Facilitation course. It's an introductory session, and yeah, before I get into introducing our wonderful course facilitators and curators of this conversation, Marcia and Claire, I just want to give us all a moment while people are still arriving and landing on the call to take a breath, to really just relax and take a deep breath in. And then to sigh it out, just using sound, movement. And as you take another breath in, to simply bring your awareness to the reason why you're here tonight. What drew you to participate in this call? What is your deepest longing for yourself, both personally and professionally? So just really taking a moment to breathe and to feel that in your body of sensation. And then I also invite you to pop into the chat box where you are right now, where you're tuning in from. And if you'd like to share your reason for being here, what drew you to being here, in a word or a sentence, you're very welcome to do that too. We'd love to hear why you're here. And whilst you're doing that, I am going to just say a few words about Marcia and Claire before handing over to them. So something that is really clear to me at Shakti Shiva Academy is that pretty much everything that we do, that we offer, our coursework, really in essence all about becoming more about who you really are. And whatever that means and whatever that looks like for you. And so it's kind of a process of deconditioning, unraveling the programming and the patterning that we've inherited through culture and family and religion. And for me, both Marcia and Claire are wonderful human examples of living this becoming more of who they really are. And Marcia is going to be facilitating, the lead facilitator on our Fundamentals of Facilitation course, and she is going to be beautifully supported by Shakti Shiva Academy senior faculty member Claire Rumor. And Marcia is really a respected after facilitator working with a specific focus on consent, on connection, on boundaries, on really helping people to heal from shame, and also supporting people to learn how to ask for what they really, really want, because that's the way that we create the world that we really, really, really want to live in. And this is something Marcia spent the last 20 years doing. It's her passion. and she's also co-authored a book about consent culture. And she is also a fundamental part of creating the facilitation program for cuddle parties, which are also running events around consent, boundaries, touch. And so Marcia is an obvious fit for Shakti Shiva Academy, and it's been such fun creating a facilitation curriculum for the Academy, collaborating with both Marcia and Claire to create a really deep and rich curriculum. And then, of course, Claire, many of you will know through her long association with the Academy. Claire was one of Shakti's first students in North America, and also supported Shakti on the ground by organizing and producing many of her in-person events. And then also, curiously, Claire was really the person who encouraged Shakti to take her training online in the form of a totality therapy training back in 2012. And honestly, it was before anyone was doing anything online. Literally, it was a pioneering program. Very few people were offering anything online. And yeah, Claire's also facilitated sexual awakening for women, sexual shadow integration work, and is just now completing the Bliss Dance Foundation training. And so is really totally steeped and immersed in all of the work at Shakti Shiva Academy. And so I'm super excited to be participating in the Fundamentals of Facilitation course. All of the Shakti Shiva Academy faculty will be participating in the course and studying alongside you. And so with that, I am going to hand over to Marcia to continue the conversation.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. And yeah, we're here today to talk about the facilitation course, to answer your questions, for you to get a chance to know me and Claire a little bit better, and just have a little bit of fun today. So that's what we'll be doing. Yeah, and I guess a little bit more about me. Facilitation is my jam. I absolutely love it. Being able to work with people in groups, make things open up for them, get the hell out of the way so that they can have their own experience, like doing that dance of structure and holding and container, while also allowing for the flow and the spontaneity and the emergence and the yeah, just the richness of each participant's experience is, like, for me, one of the most exciting things. It was really interesting preparing for this course because I was reflecting on my history, and I've facilitated over 1,000 events and experiences and classes and courses at this point, both online and in person. Of course, with Cuddle Party, also discussion groups, also sexual awakening events, friend events, just the range, right? And my favorite little sweet spot is that group of like 20 to 25 people. So I'm really excited to be facilitating a facilitation training and also to be teaching a facilitation training, which we will go into the difference between those two things as we go through it. But yeah, it's just been a really rich experience learning about Shakti Shiva Academy and getting deeper into the work that you all have been doing, and then being able to figure out how to like meld this amazing content, this amazing body of work that Shakti Milan has left behind, and merging it with, okay, now how do we deliver it? How do we create the space for you to be both the riverbanks and the river for your students and for your participants? So I'm really excited about it. And I can go into my bio and stuff like that, but you can read that online. I won't bother you with that. But this is why I'm here. This is what I'm really excited to be doing. And I'm really excited to be doing it with my long-term friend and colleague, Claire Rumor, who I met, I think, in 2006. So I started facilitating stuff in, I think, 2002. And then I started teaching facilitation around the time I met Claire in 2006. And yeah, it's been a really beautiful journey. And yeah, I'll hand it over to Claire. So if you want to share a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Claire Rumor. I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I have a very sweet connection to South Africa. So I'm really happy to be continuing the journey with Shakti Shiva Academy because it's been long established. Some of you might know I stepped away for a year. I was co-directing with Rhianne for 2 years, but stepped away for a year because of a health challenge, and am so honored and thrilled and beyond grateful to get to return as a faculty member. And I remember encountering Marcia back in maybe 2004, coming across Cuddle Party, reading about her online, wondering who this woman was, thought she was amazing with her teaching partner, Reed Mahalko, never ever dreaming that in a million years that I would not only get to know Marcia, become her friend, but also become a colleague and now a teaching partner on a facilitation course. So that's really a special thing to me. And it's a real special thing to get to bring this to all of you for your consideration. And as we were preparing for today and preparing the material on the course, it got me thinking about facilitation and the gift that facilitation is. Because I don't know about many of you, but I didn't do a traditional educational path after my bachelor's degree, which was in social sciences and human sexuality. After that, I was kind of winging it. And I moved to California in 2005 and began taking workshops, attending classes, seminars, weekend trainings, nothing like a master's degree or a PhD program in a formal academy. My path was very untraditional. And there was so much that I learned from so many people in these past, 20 years. And when I think about if any of them had thought they weren't good enough, or their message wasn't important enough, or their event or offering to their community wasn't significant enough, they would not have made it available, and I would not have benefited, and I would not have been able to add new skills, but more importantly, new dimensions and new understandings of myself to the mix of my evolution, which has now been cooking for many years. And in turn, I've been inspired to give my gifts out to the world because of those facilitators who came before me. And so I wanted to reflect that back to each of you, because clearly something about facilitation has brought you here. You're in that conversation with yourself and with us about the importance of facilitation for you. And not just for your own personal growth or because you want to offer classes and events and whatever you do in order to make money, in order to create a lifestyle for yourself and live your life, but something deeper is possible here. Something deeper is being asked for from life and from the people you haven't even met yet. So that is really what inspires me and gives me the courage to step into this program, because originally I was just going to be an assistant, basically pressing the record button on Zoom for Marcia. But since returning to Shakti Shiva, there's been a bigger ask that I step into more of the co-teaching piece and supporting Marcia in a bigger way. And I'm excited for what we will bring forth to each of you to help you with what you will be bringing forth to other people, and so forth and so on. So big ripples here. So that's just a little piece I wanted to share with all of you. But in terms of practical everyday stuff, I'm a longtime erotic educator. I'm a dancer, a movement person, a body worker who weaves in the erotic blueprints, if you've heard of that framework. And I've also worked in tech consulting, facilitating events in a whole other realm very different than Shakti Shiva. So it's exciting to get to blend those worlds in terms of practical experience and support each of you who might be on this journey with us with whatever you are cooking up and preparing to birth. So with that, we wanted to share with you a couple of practical pieces, informational pieces about the course. And then our intention is to find out from you what you would like to learn about this course or get more information about this course from us. So Marcia, I'll hand it back to you and we'll dive into some practicalities.
Yeah, I loved what you said about if the people that you had studied with hadn't brought this work for whatever reason of self-doubt or not feeling confident in their ability to deliver it, you wouldn't be who you are, right? And I think that's probably, most of us have had that experience, and most of us have probably already provided that experience for other people, whether you know it or not. There's somebody out there who is probably like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I took that class or went to that meeting or like had that conversation, did that client session, whatever, with each of you, and you don't even know that that's the ripple effect you've already had. And what I'm really excited about this course is that in kind of diving into the world of facilitation, I've kind of noticed there are a couple of different approaches, at least a couple of different approaches to it. And the way that I'm approaching it with this course than the way that I approach facilitation, generally speaking, is from a very embodied and listening kind of way. Like, what's in the room, what's alive, what needs to be heard, what's, of course, when we're teaching a workshop or creating an experience, there's information we want to deliver and there's a direction we want to go. It's not all free form. We are the banks of the river, as it were, steering where it goes, but then also the river has its own agenda too. And this is very much my philosophy. And I have been in courses and been in trainings and workshops where what's being told is that we are being facilitated, but what seems to actually be happening is the person in the front of the room has an agenda for what we will get, the experience we're going to have, the epiphany we're going to have. And sometimes it's really about sticking to the curriculum, and sometimes it's really about that person's ego, like they need to get the hit. I have a very vivid memory of being in a training where the trainer very clearly was doing this whole orchestrated thing for his ego, and it felt so bad, and I wanted to get out of that room so bad. Mentioned about a lot of my work being about consent and my deep belief as an adult who works with adults around issues of sexuality, intimacy, communication, touch, really vulnerable topics, is that being at choice is a crucial part of the experience we are providing people as facilitators. And that is not something that's present in all facilitation. So that listening, like coming from that listening place, coming from that place of what's alive in the room, what's alive in our bodies, and also how do we build in choice for our students at any given moment so that they are opting in rather than feeling pressured in or going along with or enduring or tolerating the experience they're having in the room. And the reason I feel so strongly about that, and the reason this is built in so deeply into this course, is that when we actually feel like we have a choice, we do learn more, we take in more, we have richer experiences. And I'm imagining y'all have had experiences of facilitators who kind of are pushing you through an experience. And you've probably had experiences of facilitators who are creating an experience that is collectively unfolding. And if you have had those two kinds of experiences, like, do you notice a difference in your body about how those feel? And what is that difference for you? It's going to be different for everyone. So that's something just to reflect on in terms of how I'm approaching this course, how I know Claire is approaching this course, how I feel that this collaboration with Shakti Shiva Academy, like this is so much of what Rhianne has brought to the table in terms of what we're wanting for this training and how it fits into the other Shakti Shiva training offerings, is really creating an experience of, yes, we're going to learn some heady stuff about how to implement skills, and we're going to have checklists, and we're going to have, you know, what's your pregame self, and how do you get in the right headspace before your event, and how do you make sure your content is solid, and, you know, we're going to do all of that. And also, information delivery is not why people are in the room with you. You know, they're not there to like mechanically take what's in your head and put it in their head. They're there to have an experience in their bodies. And so we're going to be getting really into that. And what are the things that contribute to that? Where are the ways we get in the way of doing that? And trust me, 20 plus years of doing this, I still get in the way of that sometimes because my ego gets in the way, you know. So that's it's a process of learning to work with ourselves. And how do we create spaces where people truly are able to access their own inner world, especially when they're not great at it, or when it's new territory, or when it feels vulnerable or taboo or scary for them. So we'll be talking about, you know, safety. We'll be talking about what creates a good container. We'll be talking about, you know, how to market your event so that the marketing feels like an extension of your facilitation. We'll be talking about all kinds of stuff in the training, but this is the real core thing, I think, that sets this training apart from a lot of other facilitation trainings, because it's not just about the information, and it's not just about getting to a destination. It really is about having the skills to hold all of that. And then on those moments when the river overflows, the riverbanks, to not have it be a crisis, to not have it be a problem, to learn how to fold it back into the experience that you're creating for people. So I don't know, Claire, do you want to add anything else to that?
Absolutely.
So my excitement is bubbling over.
We really do take a counterintuitive approach to facilitation at Shakti Shiva. And part of the reason for that is our unique tantric perspective on life. Normally, at least when I was considering or thinking about becoming a facilitator, I imagined it being a teacher, needing to be incredibly prepared, needing to have objectives and take people through the outline of the day, letting them know where we're going, where we're at, where we were, all this stuff. And though that is important and that does contribute to container and to safety, the counterintuitive approach we take is this approach, this way of being that assumes nothing. You step into the field assuming you actually know nothing. Not that you're not prepared with your notes and your learning and your past experiences. Of course you are. However, it's the letting a different power, so to speak, come through you because you are empty, because you are in the state of, I actually know nothing. So I'm going to let life inform what comes through so I can transmit that. And you allow yourself to become what's called the hollow bamboo. And so it's like the energy moves through that hollow bamboo, and that's what makes the magic happen, as opposed to your brilliant outline and your excellent marketing and all of that. It's a team effort with life. So that's the counterintuitive approach. We're not focused on being so prepared that your presentation is going to be flawless. We're actually wanting to undo that conditioning and allow you and teach you and support you and trusting the larger field that gathers around you. And so an analogy I like to use often, because I'm a dancer and maybe others of you are dancers, I definitely see some folks from the Bliss Dance training, is that when we are on the dance floor, and I do a lot of partner dance and improvisational partner dance. So we're not going into our dance knowing the steps necessarily or needing to attune to each other very, very much. And I'm a follow as opposed to a lead. And like Marcia was saying about when you are with a facilitator who is taking you through a thing and you can kind of feel the force of their agenda at work, it feels uncomfortable. There have been dances I've had with leads where they were basically dancing me, and I felt like a little marionette just doing what they wanted in the dance, and I didn't get a chance to contribute my process or my inspiration or my whatever was coming through for me in our shared dance. Whereas there have been other dances I've had with other leads where there was a lot of space for my flair to come through and for me to get to learn something about myself through the dance, yet they stayed with me through that. And I felt very supported, not just led and with my process or my experience being taken over, but supported more than pushed. And if for any of you this dance metaphor works, you can think of dances you've had, whether it's ecstatic dance, contact improv dance, ballroom dancing, whatever sort of partner dance. There really is this magic that comes through when there's just enough containment and boundary and just enough freedom of self-expression and awareness of self inside of that shared dance. So you as a facilitator are going to be dancing with your participants, and this metaphor will keep building on itself over time. And so, Marcia, I think it might be great for us to offer some distinctions between what facilitation is versus teaching, facilitation and coaching, and things like that. So, hand it over to you.
I love this dance metaphor because it feels really apt. And you know, as you were speaking, I was thinking about how vulnerable it is to facilitate in the way that we are talking about facilitating, because it really requires us, you know, to get out of our knowing brain, our information brain, our outline brain, and to get into attunement, into listening, into our bodies, into the not knowing. And when I think about, you know, there's all these surveys about like, what's your greatest fear? And for so many people, it's public speaking. And I think with public speaking, there's sort of this idea of like teaching and knowing and being in the front of the room and delivering information. And what if I don't know the information? And the thing that's really beautiful about facilitation is that you don't have to know to do a great job, because being in the not knowing together and just having the clarity of what is the container, what are the boundaries, okay, everything inside of that is fine, is a really different place to come from. Now, the thing that's interesting with this facilitation is we are also often teaching with it. So teaching is a separate skill set. Teaching is having an outline, having the clarity of what you want to cover, what's the deliverables, what do you want your curriculum to have. You will be seeing us both facilitating and teaching in this training. But the distinction for me is that facilitation is really just making it easier for your participants to access their inner experience. So you might be teaching or guiding through some content, through some distinctions like I'm doing now. You may be writing some things on the board or the white, you know, the flip chart that you have in your head that you want to convey, right? So that's one way, that's teaching. Or you might be soliciting information from the group and writing what they write, what they say. And like, that's facilitation, right? So like in both cases, you're writing information down, but they're not coming from the same place. And with facilitation, it's like, okay, we don't know what's going to come up in the room. You might get a curveball. You might get something that doesn't immediately fit into the, excuse me, into the framework that you have in your head for how this information is delivered. And so there's a bit of an improv yes and quality. So that's why I loved that you used this analogy of improvisational dancing. Like you don't know the steps, you don't know what's going to come. And that's the beauty of it. Versus teaching, where it's like, okay, everybody comes into the classroom, we all sit down. Yeah, sure, maybe we do a little like grounding exercise or whatever, but then we're like into the information. And there will be times, especially if you are leading people through a longer experience, where you may toggle between teaching and facilitating. And I love teaching. It's one of my favorite things in addition to facilitating. But they are really different skills. And I really was the two facilitation experiences that really drove that home for me. One is Cuddle Party, which is a 3.5-hour event. There's a workshop portion at the beginning where we're practicing skills around asking and boundaries and changing your mind and sort of getting people used to this idea that you can interact in this way with people that they may not know. And what are the skills involved for that? Doing a little bit of practice. And then it's an open space for about 2.5 hours and then there's a small structured closing circle. And in that 2-hour space, you're sort of watching the group, you're sort of guiding people a little bit, but it's very free form. And that's maybe more on the like pure facilitation side, right? Not very much teaching. Similarly, I ran an open relationship discussion group every month for 9 years, and that was conversation based. And people would come with all kinds of charged topics and like, oh, I'm struggling with this thing, and I can't believe this thing about my partner's other partner. I'm so mad, and let's have a 2-hour conversation about the meaning of what leaving a toothbrush behind is, and all of these things. And learning how to hold big emotions while steering the conversation to be valuable and discussion based rather than emotional processing, which was not what the group was for, and to be sort of tool oriented without dismissing anyone's feelings, without having people feel like they were not heard. So how do you like have people feel heard and seen without having them take over a group? That was really a skill that I got to hone in that context. So those are some of the differences between teaching and facilitation. And with coaching, again, there's overlap, right? So teaching and facilitation overlap, coaching and facilitation, there's overlap. So with coaching, and the way I tend to approach it is, there's an outcome that the client wants, there's a direction, there's like skills they're wanting to learn, they're wanting guidance. There is also this sort of stance we hold that the client has the inner wisdom, like we are helping them access the inner wisdom. So that's a similarity with facilitation, that there's an inner experience that they're having that's far more important than anything that I can provide as a coach. But as a coach, I am being more directive. I am being more like, let's do this exercise. Let's notice what comes up. Okay, how can you apply that to your life? And it's a little bit more outcome oriented. It's a little bit more agenda driven by the client. Whereas teaching is sort of agenda driven by me as the teacher, coaching is agenda driven by the client. And with facilitation, it's just less agenda driven, right? We're here to have an experience. We're here to access what's in there. If we do this thing, if we play this game, if we do this practice, if we try this exercise, what emerges? What curiosity can we bring? And so there's a lot of overlap in the listening and the curiosity and the providing instructions to experiment with a practice or with a game. But it's a more open field, I would say, with facilitation than with coaching. With coaching, there is a direction that you're trying to go that's a little bit more specific in its destination. And of course, facilitation is not open-ended, right? Like having clear intentions is something we will be talking about a lot, and the difference between expectations and intentions, and how we can use intentions to create containers for ourselves to get our heads clear going into a facilitation experience. I'm a big believer in using intentions because you can't have an unconscious intention, but boy, howdy, can you have unconscious expectations. So that's something we'll be playing with. But yeah, the overlap is, there's clearly overlap with the teaching and the coaching, but I feel like facilitation is really about creating a sort of, kind of a clear container, enough instruction that participants know what to do, and then openness and a willingness to be surprised. Have your participants be surprised, also for you to be surprised, for you to be caught off guard, for you to not know. And that's the real art, is like, how do you continue to hold a container when like, wow, didn't expect that to happen. And oh wow, how can I help them get like deeper access into their own experience? Claire, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway out of any of this, or to synthesize what we're really wanting to point to, is that facilitation is about a state of being, much more so than a state of doing or a state of over preparation or perfection. So that really is what it's about. And facilitation at the end of the day is a relational art. So when I look at these skills and the awarenesses involved in facilitation, I can see how these same skills and awarenesses are immediately applicable to any relationship I have and any relationship I'm in. So a top one being, how can I be a vulnerable facilitator? How can I be a vulnerable partner and relator and friend? How can I also remain in my power while I'm being vulnerable and not go codependent to the group or to someone close to me? Stay in my power, yet also be very attuned to what the needs of the other or others are. There's this trusting the moment, trusting your intuition, and trusting your body knowing. And these also translate into dance, especially partner dancing. And then how do I remain with my feet on solid ground? So that's the preparation piece, while remaining fluid, like Marcia was pointing to, like very free form simultaneously and attuned to the group and the group's ever-changing needs and realizations and new questions, new asks of you as a facilitator, as opposed to, well, regardless of what is coming through for them, I have this outline. There's things we need to cover, on we go, pushing through. It's stepping back from the agenda and attuning to the field more and more, and remaining firmly rooted, even when there might be chaos, even when there might be misunderstanding, even if there's a participant who's just not getting something and needing to go slower. So there's all kinds of curveballs that can happen at any moment. And that's okay. That's life. That is life. So I really see facilitation as life skills and relational skills that have the side benefit of supporting others in their growth and teaching them something. So these are some of our aims with this training. And it might be a great time to talk logistics about the training and then open up space for Q&A. And just as a starting place for that, you're probably aware that the training is in an arc that's 1 year long, so 12 months. That Rhianne and team have very cleverly designed in trimesters. So there will be full month breaks after every 3 months of content and learning and exploration and discovery. We'll have 1 month to integrate. And during one of those months, there will be the opportunity for the retreat that will happen, so we can come together in person to learn and practice together. And more so than that, to give you an opportunity to digest everything you just learned and experienced and realized. So it's a 1 year arc we're looking at. And each month we'll have a module. So there are a module and a module theme, and then classes and support classes that solidify the learning and create opportunities for you to land in the learning even more. And yeah, let's see. Marcia, do you want to speak to the themes? Because with the development of the module themes, sharing your process with how those were developed.
Yes. So the first trimester is really about what is facilitation? How do you create a sense of safety? Who are you as a facilitator? What are you bringing to the table? And also, like, how do you actually create really solid openings and closings for container building, including what comes before before you're even in the room with people, and what comes after, so that people feel really held through an experience. And we'll be, using our heads, our hearts, our grinds, everything, all of it to create all of the stuff. So we're going to try to have it be as embodied as possible as we go through that. And then that will also sort of form the foundation for the second trimester, which is really practice. So the second trimester will be, the first trimester will be pretty information heavy. And then the second trimester is going to be refinements, advanced practices. How do you track the room? What does that even mean? How do you respond to concerns that your participants bring to you? What does it mean to make your events accessible to people? Because that can mean a lot of different things, including contradictory things. How do you keep people engaged when they are when you have participants who are in very different places? What do you do when you get curveballs? Rhianne has a very fun and funny list of things that have actually happened, including baboons showing up, which as an American, that's a new one on me, but I've definitely had, and we got a lot more snow than we expected, and the supplies didn't show up, like we lost the truck. And, there's so many of those kinds of logistical things that can happen. And that's often a really fun and funny section, because it's like, okay, this is like all your worst nightmares. Let's role play them so that you have the confidence to go, okay, I don't have that. Yes. And what is my intention? How do I deliver on the experience we're trying to create when we don't have cups or food, or there are wild animals trying to get in, etc. And like, how do you recover when these obstacles come up? And there's interpersonal ones. There's, what happens when somebody drops an emotional bomb in the room? What happens when somebody, is having a big emotional reaction to something, or can't quite seem to get with the program and wants to derail it? So we'll be role playing all of that kind of stuff, interpersonal, the logistical, and then of course the personal. So that's all in the second trimester. How do you have for yourself integrity? What's accountability look like? How do you, when you feel adrift, where do you go to get support? All those kinds of things. And then the third section is what we're calling cultivating your personal style. So this is like, what does self-care look like for you as a facilitator, including before the event, after the event? How do you create boundaries and limits for your participants, but also for yourself, in terms of how much are you going to give so that you avoid burnout? How do you plan your workshop and your group, including, marketing, which I mentioned, finding a venue, getting great assistants that are in support of the vision that you really want to deliver on, because not everybody can step into a role that is supposed to support you. And so what does it look like to actually accept support, and where are the places that maybe you have a tendency to try to go it alone, or to like abdicate responsibility? Where can you sort of shore that up in yourself? And then at the end, we'll be integrating. We'll be doing a big integration month and celebration, and graduation. And then after that, we'll have an in-person retreat for the folks who want to participate in that. That's going to be an optional retreat in South Africa next April, to take 7 days and just play with all of it, using a lot of the Shakti Shiva frameworks and practices. So the intention is that both Claire and I will be there. That is the hope at this point. And that's an optional thing. Like, you do not have to travel if you don't want to, if it feels limited in any way. Like, this is all being done online. We will have lots of opportunities for practice. We'll have lots of opportunities for you to go off and try stuff in your workshops, in your events, in your discussion groups, whatever it is you're running, and then bring it back to class and be like, whew, this didn't work. Or, what do I do? Like, can I get some coaching on that? So we will also have an opportunity to get a little bit of coaching on things as we go through it too. So that's the beauty of the year-long program, is that as you're learning, you can then start to apply it in your actual work in the world. And I've taught a lot of this content as a weekend, and it's great, and people really get a lot out of it. Claire took that training. But what I'm really excited about in terms of the structure and the way that we're building this out is that, you'll learn something and you can apply it 2 months later, and you're still in the course to be able to get feedback about how it went, or to bring questions about, like, hey, that thing we talked about in module 3, I know we're in module 6, but I tried it and like, I have questions. So we'll be here for that experience with you. So you'll have that real-time feedback process. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. Claire, do you want to talk a little bit about who the course is for and like who we're inviting in?
Absolutely. So the course is designed for people who are already facilitating and want to up their skill level even more. It's for folks who are in some sort of therapeutic role, and coaches, counselors, therapists of any type and any modality. Additionally, educators, folks who are already educating or have an interest in that and want to sharpen facilitation skills of how to hold a group field and be in community while delivering something, delivering information, delivering a presentation. And it doesn't matter how large or how small the groups are that you're imagining yourself working with, because facilitation skills are facilitation skills, whether it's one other person you're with or whether it's 1,000 people you're with. The same awarenesses apply. It's still a relational art, regardless of how many people you're relating to and with. And then some other ways that we're building in extra support and extra skill building and self-care into the course is every trimester. The logistical piece from every trimester is we're going to have a study hall. That way we can review together the information we've covered, the experiences we've had. It's happening at the end of every trimester. And then each month in a trimester, there's an opportunity for a breathwork class that you'll get to participate in as part of the training that Rhianne leads. And Rhianne leads these every month. So us facilitation students get to be part of that for free. And then Callie, who's on the call. Callie, would you like to wave your hand so people see you? Callie's our bliss dance teacher and facilitator. And Callie will be, Callie offers monthly bliss dance drop-in classes. And so each month our cohort will get to go be part of that. The breath work and the bliss dance being a somatic, tantric, expressive movement practice, as opposed to dancing like a salsa class. The practices and purposes of breath work and bliss dance are to help us continue to bring our bodies with us. Because though we might be delivering, like Marcia said, heady material, learning, points we want to make, stuff coming from the intellect, we need, and others will be helped by us bringing our bodies with us. So when we have a bit more awareness and mastery of our breath, and a bit more mastery and awareness of our bodies, we're helping others. So that's a little bit there. All of this you can read on the page about the course, and we'll put that link in the chat. And in the meantime, Rhianne, why don't you give a brief overview when you're ready about the 3 pillars at Shakti Shiva Academy? And sorry, the bliss dance will be every 3 months, and maybe breathwork also. So correct me if I'm wrong. Rhianne, if you will share about the 3 pillars at Shakti Shiva and how the facilitation course works into that.
Yeah, sure. So Shakti Shiva has these 3 learning paths. Many of you will know Shakti Malan wrote a really cutting-edge book on called Sexual Awakening for Women. And so that is one of our learning paths. Another one is sexual shadow integration work. So really powerful course where we do a really deep dive into how our sexuality is formed in our families of origin, in our culture, how our particular eros and intimacy, attachment styles, etc. And then more recently, we have Kylie has created the bliss dance curriculum. She built on what Shakti offered when she was alive and in her body and teaching, and took the fundamental concepts and created a really very rich curriculum that the first cohort of students is just now completing. And over the years, since Shakti passed and left her body in 2017, we've offered these courses many times as personal development courses, and the feedback that we get is that people have not encountered courses like this anywhere else. Many of the people who take our courses are already professionals, they're not courses for beginners generally. People have a lot of mastery in the world. And many of those people over the years have continued to ask us, well, what's the next step? Shakti did totality therapy, and she only actually offered it once back in 2012. And there was quite a small group of us who actually did that online with her, including many of the current Shakti Shiva Academy faculty. And so this was our answer to students continually requesting, how can we learn to facilitate this work? We want to both deepen in our own personal evolution, but at the same time, we want to learn professional mastery. And so it was a natural evolution over time, and it has taken that much time, literally 7 years since Shakti passed, to get to this place of being able to offer a year 1, followed by a year 2, and then to year 3, where students get to really focus on what their specialist area of choice is. So whether that's sexual shadow and working with the sexual shadow, it's holding groups for women to have their process, or whether it's learning to become a bliss dance facilitator. So that's the evolution of the course and how it fits in. And so the year 2, the Fundamentals of Facilitation course, is for all of our students. And that's a really wonderful thing. Whichever learning path you're doing, we're all going to come together in year 2 to learn the fundamentals of facilitation. And that feels really solid and really, really important as well. And I think the very last thing to just be clear on is that you don't have to start with a year 1 course. You can start now with the Fundamentals of Facilitation course. And then next year you can continue to take the year 1 course in the learning path. So that is, I could say more, but that feels like enough for now.
Wonderful. And it feels like a really good time to open up the floor to any questions you all might have. And if you want to put questions in the chat, feel free to do that. If you want to take yourself off mute, raise your hand and speak live so we can interact with you, we welcome that also. Is anything that you're left wondering? All of the information is on the sales page, which Marcia put into the chat. You want to check that out. The early bird registration is happening right now through April 15th. And there's a generous discount that comes with the early bird. And Rhianne, you speak to that in terms of the details of that discount, and then any discount from today and the retreat. Also, there's a question about the retreat.
Sure. So the early bird pricing, as you said, Claire, is available until the 15th of April. And it's a 15% saving on the full price. So if you know you want to do this course, I would definitely sign up before then to take advantage of that. The retreat is at the end of the year. So the course starts now with the first call on the 16th of May. And our 1-week retreat will be at Bodikaya in South Africa in April 2025. I think the dates are the 11th to the 18th, if I remember off the top of my head. But that's also available on the sales page. Let's have a look.
Looks like the 11th to the 18th
of April
Correct.
next year.
Yeah, next
Correct.
year.
And Carly asks, can practitioners who will not be undertaking year 1 or year 3 do the fundamentals of facilitation as a standalone? Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It has been designed as a standalone course and a very rich and meaty one. And our intention with this course is really create a cohort of colleagues and peers supporting each other in our own journeys of awakening, whilst learning to do that and facilitate that for other beautiful breathing bodies of love, for other beings who are waking up to the magnificence of who and what they really are. And so it's a non-hierarchical structure that we're creating, even though, of course, Marcia and Claire will be holding the energetic authority for the course.
Yeah, and I want to also piggyback on that I really did design this with that in mind, that there will be people who are going to be in the learning paths for Shakti Shiva, and that we really wanted to create a fantastic training that people who are just doing any work around sexuality, intimacy, touch, therapy, any of that kind of stuff can come and be like, I got a solid training in facilitation skills. I'm now going to go apply that to this other thing that I'm doing. So I really have that in mind when I was designing it, and I'm really excited to see how that emerges in the group. So thank you for asking that question.
And Marcia, there's a question in the chat. How much coursework and assignment work will there be for participants, for example, outside of the lessons?
So we're working really hard to have a lot of support material outside of the classes, not just for you to be able to do, you know, along the way, but also to go back to and be able to reference as, you know, a year later, 2 years later, what was that thing that we talked about this piece of container building or safety or what have you. So we're going to try pretty hard not to have it be overwhelming. I would say, honestly, it's going to vary. The second trimester is going to be a lot more experiential role play kind of stuff, and the first section is going to be a bit more information heavy. So I would say set aside maybe a couple hours a month to be able to go through material, but because so much of it is relational, a lot of it's going to be happening in class, a lot of it's going to be happening in, you know, study halls and things like that. I find that courses that have a lot of information outside of it, it's really easy to just not do it. And so I want to have enough information available that for people who want more, it's there. But for people who are like, I only have time to be in class and I really want to get as much out of this by being in class as possible, you're going to be in good shape. So I don't know if that's too vague of an answer, but generally speaking, an hour to 2 hours a month of extra time should be plenty. And then of course we'll have lots of material for you to go a lot deeper. So if you want to get real nerdy about it, you can spend hours and hours and hours.
Definitely. And there's another
jump
oh
in
yeah,
there.
Rhianne. Yeah.
Just to say, because Alex, you're coming out of the bliss dance training, and just counterintuitively, our year one trainings have a lot more content and information and intellectual content, whereas our year two is a more experiential, more contemplative, and so it won't be as demanding from an assignment point of view. So I just wanted to clarify that for everybody, actually.
And there will be practices that we'll provide that we will be doing on the calls as well, that you can take and do them over and over and over again, or you can just do them in class. Like they're there for you to use at any point. So that, yeah, we really want it to be sort of expand and contract as feels good to you or as you have capacity.
Marcia, there's another question I think would be great for you to answer. Is the focus of facilitation for embodied and relational and sexual awakening work or intimacy work?
Yes. So this is not going to be, you know, very oriented towards information delivery or oriented towards, we will have some business stuff that we touch on, but like, that's not what we're doing here. There's a lot of different kinds of facilitation, and my background is in sex education, and I'm very much oriented towards intimacy, relational, you know, relational work, and sensuality, embodiment, all of that kind of stuff. So that will absolutely be the focus of this. And then we will bring in tiny elements, especially in some of our master classes, from other folks who are like, here's how it can apply in a business context, or here's how it can apply, you know, one-on-one or things like that. Yeah.
Right.
And then we have a question about the master classes too, I see.
Yeah, and one more that came in. So I'll speak to the master classes. We have 3 master classes. So one of those will happen each trimester. We're very fortunate to have Betty Martin. For those of you who have heard of her, she created a tool called the Wheel of Consent and wrote an amazing book called The Art of Giving and Receiving, The Art of Receiving and Giving. And She's going to be one of our masterclass teachers, not so much teaching the Wheel of Consent. There's plenty of resources out there that we can use for that, but really it's an Ask Me Anything type of format. Betty's been facilitating for decades. So it's more of her sharing her experiences with us asking her very pointed questions about her best practices, what she's learned over these years, how to navigate the Wheel of Consent, to bring that Wheel of Consent into group process work and facilitation. So Betty Martin is one of our teachers. Then we have Joy Clarissa Taylor, who will be talking about the soul path of business. So that will be our more business focused component apart from what shows up in our modules, but we'll go deep into that with Joy. And then a colleague and mentor of mine named Moses Ma will be the third teacher, and he's who I worked with in tech consulting, and I was his assistant and associate for a number of facilitation events. He's very good at innovative approaches to facilitation. So his talk is called Innovative Strategies to Enhance Your Facilitation Style. So those are our master classes. And then we've got a couple more questions. What about if I don't have other experience or training in working with people? I don't have specific plans to facilitate, but am trusting that what I will do in the future will become clear as I move forward. So absolutely, this training is still going to be for you, Kyla. And Marcia, you want to say more to that?
Yeah, I wanted to actually just reflect what you had said earlier, Claire, that facilitation skills are relational skills, and, you know, working with groups formally. I mean, I live in a co-op. I have 6 housemates. I use my facilitation skills all the time, you know, house meetings and how are we going to do this project? And does everybody feel heard, you know, as we're planning this picnic, you know, that is everybody getting what they want, you know, on the menu? Like, we use these skills like in big ways and small ways all the time. So you already do have experience working with people if you're a person in society. And if you have relationships, and if there's ever been a thing you've tried to do, like order pizza with 2 other people, facilitation skills. So you absolutely will get tremendous benefit from this. You know, this is going to be professionally focused, and it's absolutely beneficial in every other area of your life as well.
And I'd say the training is a bit of an incubator. So there may be inspirations and ideas that come through by hearing what other people are doing and what they're cooking up. And so there's a high likelihood, Kyla, that something will come through in terms of a vision, even if it's for 10 years down the road, that something will come through for you. I feel fully confident about that. And then this last question, is the retreat in South Africa open to the public or only to students of this course? So Rhianne, correct me if I'm wrong. My sense is that it is open to the public. However, the emphasis is going to be on people who are in the training. Is that right, Rhianne?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, because facilitation skills are relational skills and they're quite universal. So if there are other folks who are wanting to take the course, we're certainly open to that. And our primary focus will be on those who are in the course. And Johanna, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was trying to write it in the chat and at the same time listen, so I was a bit confused.
Sure.
But yeah, I've been a professional dancer for the last 10 years, and I feel something really wants to emerge and be of service and contribute. And I've never done a educator's training or anything like this, but I feel this longing to hold space, or yeah, I don't know yet how, or yeah, but I'm curious if this course would be something that could help me with that. Because when you said about it, it will be mainly focused on yeah, relational, sexual awakening work, intimacy work. Like, I think I'm interested in that, but it's maybe not my main focus, or like, I don't know, I feel, yeah, I'm not sure how open-ended or how open the work is that we'll be doing, and if I would be able to apply it. Yeah, and at the same time, I also don't really know yet, so I don't know if my question is very clear, but yes, this is what I'm kind of having in my mind body right now.
Yeah, Marcia, why don't you take a go at this question first?
Yeah, I love this question. And I love the place that you're coming from with it. So when I think of like sexuality and intimacy work, what for me that really means is like bodies and emotions. So I feel like dance, for me as I hold dance, which might be very different because you've been doing it from a professional standpoint. But for me and my understanding of it, it would absolutely include that, because with dance, we're navigating like, you know, containers of people who may have clumsiness with one another. There's going to be stuff that comes up. You're going to be trying to guide them through an experience. Big emotions may come up. And we're kind of in that body space of that. For me is, you know, I'm coming from a sex ed background, but I'm also like Claire, a dancer. I do a lot of ecstatic dance and freeform improvisational type of stuff. And, you know, if you're doing more formal stuff, there will be the teaching component. So that the curriculum of teaching dance will not be part of this. That, you know, maybe is part of Bliss Dance, I'm not sure, but we're not really going to be doing developing curricula per se in this, because that's more of a teaching skill. What we will be doing is how to be with what emerges in a group, how to hold and steer and allow space all at the same time. So for what it sounds like you're interested in, it probably will be very supportive. I would imagine that would be a great next step for figuring out what does it mean to be of service, with bodies, with people using their bodies with one another, and navigating all the things that can come up from that.
Yeah.
Does that get at your question?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question.
Yay, well, we are just past the hour, but looks like Kate, you have a question, yeah?
I have a question that will form itself, I guess, as I speak, because it's somewhere in me, but it's not quite fully formulated. It's this feeling in me that I've had the great privilege to kind of apprentice alongside my partner, who is a qualified facilitator, and I've been able to jump straight into the arena and learn by doing, which has been an amazing gift. And I'm sitting in the place where I'm wondering how taking an online training will, I know it will support, but kind of like, is it going to be worth my while to sit online as well as, you know what I'm trying to say? I think I'm asking how do you think it could benefit in my situation specifically, as opposed to being in the arena? Yeah, full stop. Yeah, this is my attempt at a question.
I love that. Claire, do you want me to take a stab at that, or do you want to?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So the answer, truthfully, and this is something we'll talk about in the facilitation training, is that it's okay to say, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't actually know, because I don't know enough about your specific experience. What I can say is that there's a few things that I think will be beneficial. Being exposure to other styles, I think, always enhances our skills. So if you have any training in one modality or any style of anything, getting exposure to how other people do it only can help flesh out what you're offering, right? Or how you approach things, or like illuminate blind spots that you might have. So that's one thing I would say. I think the other piece is expanding your network of potential collaborators, potential sources of reflection, you know, that in terms of professional development, I think having the cohort with you of other folks who are doing this kind of work. I mean, I've only ever benefited from that. I imagine that's true for a lot of people. Being able to be like, oh man, like, I know, you know what, I should ask so-and-so. Like, it's not even about asking me and Claire. It's like, oh, this person does similar work to me. How have they handled this kind of situation coming up? And then there's the fun of it, of just being in the soup of, you know, playing with emotions, playing with vulnerability, playing with how the techniques, and also learning language for things you may already be doing, I think, is another thing that, in terms of really leveling up as a facilitator, there's a lot of things that when you learn by doing, which is also how I learned, translating those things into a curriculum, translating those things into, like, when I take other trainings, I'm like, yes, I kind of know this stuff. Oh, the level of nuance that's now available because I'm not new and I'm hearing how somebody else is teaching it. Then I'm able to go and, like, do the same thing I was doing, but with a much deeper understanding of what I've been doing and why. And I think that could be potentially very beneficial. So, like I said, I don't know enough about your specific background to be like, yes, you should totally take the training. And, you know, that's been what I've observed in these kinds of teaching environments. We've put a lot of thought into creating both experiences and, like, breaking down the distinctions of this is what is happening when we're facilitating. And so I think that will be beneficial, but, you know, use your judgment and feel free to ask more questions. And, you know, we would love to know what you're noticing.
And I have two
Yeah,
things to
thank
add to
you.
that also.
It sounds like the
And-
why behind the how, in a sense, just to
Yeah,
let-
exactly.
no? Sorry, Claire.
Claire,
Yeah, a couple of things to add to that. Through this training, and of course, not knowing what your partner facilitates or the frameworks used and all that, there's a difference between facilitating live versus facilitating virtual events, facilitating small intimate groups versus groups that are much larger and much more formal. And so maybe there's certain events that you're comfortable with because you've jumped in the deep end and got on the job training with that, but there are events that you've never facilitated or styles of facilitation you haven't done yet. And it might be nice to learn how to do those too. I have a lot of experience with online trainings, and Marcia has a lot of experience with in-person. And so we're blending these composites. And then the other piece I've watched myself when I was mentoring with my mentor, Moses, it was easy to take on his style and not really develop my own style until I stepped on the stage with my own intentions and purposes. So that's another piece of what we cover, especially in the third trimester, is cultivating your style, each of you, your unique style of facilitation based on your personality, your interests, your experiences, your gifts. So those are some other elements worth considering a training like this versus just diving in the deep end and learning on the job. And so there was a really, and I hope that helps, Kate, before I just jump ahead.
Yeah, those are very thorough answers. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. And I didn't want to miss this question that Angela put in. It says, I have questions about dealing with managing race, gender, sexuality intersections, also trauma-informed embodiment. Marcia, would you like to speak to these elements in the curriculum?
yeah.
And Angela, if you have specific questions, by the way, specific questions to these, feel free to come on and let us know. But otherwise, we'll answer what you put here.
No, it's fine, just like that. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to be talking about this. This is something Claire and I have talked extensively about, is how do we talk about dynamics, both power dynamics and just things that might impact the room? How do we talk about power? How do we talk about power across cultures where, you know, we've got a mixed American, South African, European thing where the contexts are not the same. I'm living in Oakland, California, man. We've got, like, a lot of awareness, and, like, it is part of the soup here in facilitation to name racial dynamics, name gender dynamics, have, you know, awareness of different sexualities, different sexual orientations, genders, all that kind of stuff. I'm also from the South, as is Claire. This is one of the dynamics we'll be talking about, is the ways Claire and I are actually in many ways quite similar in our backgrounds. And that's not a conversation where I came from. It's still not a conversation. If I enter into a room teaching the way I teach in Oakland, or facilitate the way I facilitate in Oakland, it's going to go over people's heads and create more confusion. So there's a piece about how do you name what's true. There's a piece about navigating people's lived experiences in the room. And then there's a piece about reading your audience for where they're at and their, you know, what's their capacity. Like, is this all new to them? Is this not new to them? What do you do if it's a mixed group of awareness? So this is a very broad question, and I'm like so excited about it because I feel like these are all things that really inform any willingness to be emotionally vulnerable with one another. And that sort of touches into the trauma piece too, of like, people have, oppression's real. It's a thing that all of us are dealing with in different positionalities and can cause trauma. And then there's the interpersonal trauma and the bodily trauma, medical trauma, sexual abuse, all kinds of abuse and just challenges of like living in the modern world. So the trauma informed, we're going to be touching on some pieces of trauma informed embodiment. I'm not teaching trauma informed embodiment. That's like outside the scope of facilitation. I mean, that would be an entire course on its own, although I do really try hard to include a lot of things about choice and space and time to like regulate. We've got some content on like helping your participants navigate challenging emotions. And we recognize that like not everybody facilitating is a therapist, or even if you are a therapist in the facilitation role, it may or may not be appropriate to go fully into navigating people's trauma. So like, how do you even know what those boundaries are is absolutely something we will be talking about. And what happens if something is too big for you to hold around that, without making people wrong or shaming them or making them feel bad for having the reactions that they have. So, I mean, I could talk about this for a really long time. These are really, really, really great questions. And it'll be woven throughout the course, because our identities impact how we show up. Our participants' identities impact how they show up. Our lived experiences of trauma, their lived experiences of trauma, and everybody may be at different places with both their experiences and their awareness of their experiences. And so what do you do with that? That is definitely something we'll be talking about throughout. Claire, do you want to add anything? I know we've had extensive conversations about this.
And we have more extensive conversations to have. And this is a very delicate piece of facilitation. And Angela, I'm glad you presenced it, because we will do the best we can with the resources we have to bring these to the room and to the training without turning the training into a training about specifically this, because it really could be its own training. So we will at least open the doors and the conversations to these topics.
And this is also where I alluded earlier to like having, content you can go back to later, like resources. This is an area that I really want to make sure that y'all have a lot of resources of other people who are dealing with very specific parts, because depending on what you are facilitating, you're more or less likely to have certain things come up. And I want to make sure that we talk about it through the lens of how do you facilitate and make people's access of their own experience easier, but also your own continuing education, for like, I need to know more about XYZ, where do I go? I really want to make sure we include a lot of content about next steps for any particular rabbit holes people want to go down on this stuff.
Yeah, so we will do our best and bring our best with that. So thank you so much, Angela, for that question.
Does that address what you were asking, Angela? Okay, great, thank you.
And as we're wrapping up here, Rhianne put into the chat, for anyone who still has questions and we just didn't have time for them, or the question didn't fully form itself for you to bring it to today, Rhianne and I are available for discovery calls. I'm over here in California, Rhianne's in South Africa. So you've got a choice of time zones to choose from, but the links are in the chat. So feel free to grab one of those slots. It's a 30-minute slot, and we'll do our best and be very happy to answer any additional questions you might have. And then Rhianne, if you'll briefly speak to what happens next in terms of the follow-up email to today and what that email will contain, and then we'll wrap for today. And also financial assistance for those who might need that.
Yeah, so I just popped those links there, and just wanted to also present the financial assistance piece. So we really welcome you to connect with either Claire or I if you have questions. If, like Kate, you had a very personal set of you wanted to talk, and if you want to go more deep into that, then a discovery call would be a really good place to unpack a little. And then also just to present that for people who are experiencing financial challenge, or that the full course fees would be a barrier to entry, then fill out our financial aid form. We ask you to do that with as much transparency and integrity, please. And we will respond to exactly what you present. And yeah, I really welcome you to ask for what you need if you need support. Yeah, and then what was the other thing you said, Claire? Next steps. Oh yeah, the email, right. We will send out an email with this call recording. There were many other people who signed up who weren't able to be on the live call, and all the links that we've put into the chat box so far will be easily accessible for you, and you can choose whether to continue on to a discovery call, whether to sign up immediately. Yeah, everything will be laid out for you. Super simple. Oh, it's so good to see you, Kyla. Yeah, really beautiful continuation of our work together. I'm really looking forward to taking it with you and several others who are going to be jumping on board.
Yay. So thank you everyone for being with us today and letting us share with you about this course and letting us hear from you. And if there are other questions, we are absolutely here at your service to answer and participate and contribute how we can. And we'd love for you to join us if it's speaking to you. Anything you want to say in closing, Marcia, as we hop off?
I hope I see some of your faces in the course. This has been really pleasurable to just share with all of you and, you know, make myself available, and also to share what we've been working on. We've been working on this now for 2 years, more than 2 years, I think, at this point. So it's just very exciting to be able to like present it to some folks who are interested to hear about it, whether or not you sign up. So I hope to see some of your faces there, and yeah, reach out if you have any questions.
Okay. So we'll sign off for now. You'll receive that email within 24 to 48 hours, and it's so good to connect with and see you and meet you, and we look forward to more with you. Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.